This is AdTechGod, and this is a commercial message. Innovid believes that TV should be open for everyone and controlled by no one. And the time to make that vision a reality is now. That's why Innovid created Harmony, an industry-wide initiative to address the biggest challenges facing CTV advertising today. By optimizing at the infrastructure level, Harmony aims to improve efficiency, enhance transparency and control, and increase ROI, all while reducing carbon emissions and providing better viewing experiences for all. Find out more and get involved at innovid.com/harmony. Again, go to innovid.com/harmony. This is a disclosure. Please note that all guests featured on the AdTechGod pod are invited to participate. They do not pay in any form to appear on the show. However, guests may be sponsors of the AdTechGod community, the AdTech Forum, or other product offerings. Welcome to the AdTechGod pod, your window into the world of advertising technology and the people behind it. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Welcome back to another episode of the AdTechGod pod, the podcast where we meet the amazing leaders of our industry. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Katie is the Chief Operating Officer at Magnite and a leader in the space. Her journey to the top is incredible, embodying dedication, strategic foresight, and a passion for leadership. Starting her career with a humble beginning at Mindshare at Maxxus, Katie quickly demonstrated her exceptional capabilities and drive. She later joined Tremor Video, where she spent nearly 7 years holding multiple positions from sales management all the way to Senior Vice President of Operations and Strategy. Now at Magnite, Katie continues to break barriers and push the envelope, leading her team with a vision that's setting new standards in the space. Her story is a testament to her resilience, adaptability, and her relentless pursuit for excellence. In today's episode, we're going beyond the bio to get to know the person behind the title, what drives her, what lessons she learned along the way, and what advice she has for those looking to make their mark on our industry. I'm excited to meet Katie today, and you should be too. Katie, welcome to the AdTechGod pod.
Yeah, of course. This will be fun.
So, Katie, your background's pretty incredible. Like you've spent a lot of time at some of your prior employers. How did you get into the industry and what got you to this point today?
Yeah, we'll do like a nice little walk down memory lane here. So I think probably similar to a lot of the other folks that you've had on the podcast, somewhat randomly fell into ad tech. I did study marketing and psychology, so I knew, advertising was interesting to me. When I graduated, it was in 2007, and so it wasn't the easiest time to find a job, as we all know back then. But I did do a few random things and finally got an opportunity at Mindshare / Maxxus on the digital team, which was, I think, the best way to kind of get like advertising 101, get the experience to, present to clients, to put media plans together, to understand the digital landscape. So I was thrown into digital from the beginning, didn't have any linear experience at all. And it was great, but I soon realized that agency life just wasn't for me. I was much more intrigued in a lot of the companies that were obviously pitching me all day, every day to get on the media plans for my client. And especially intrigued by kind of the startups that were starting to emerge in the ad tech space. So there was a small company called ScanScout. Not sure if you've even recognized the name. They're based in Boston. It was at the time when networks and technology were starting to kind of come together. I remember vividly thinking about how I'm about to leave WPP, right? Like obviously a huge organization, for this tiny company where I was going to be employee like 8, but it was my first kind of jump into ad tech and into startups. And 14 years later, it is the same company, but it's not the same company. So I have never left, which is, I think, also not probably normal in ad tech. Probably one of the fewer folks that have kind of been at the same company for 14 plus years now, pretty much my entire career. But it is nothing like it being one company. So ScanScout quickly merged with Tremor Video. We were then one of the first ad tech companies to IPO in 2014. So got to experience that like whole highs and lows of being a public company. Hit low really fast when we didn't hit our numbers. Like the second quarter we went public, which was a fun experience to say the least. We, at that point, my role was kind of growing and changing throughout the company. We were still very much what you would call a traditional kind of ad network with like some technology, starting to power it more. That was right at the time where programmatic became, hot word, right? Everyone was trying to think about DSPs and SSPs, and we started focusing not only on the buy side, but also the sell side. And so we started building out what today is Magnite's SSP for video and streaming. And it was super, interesting to kind of move through the legacy network model to the programmatic, technology enabled reality that ad tech was moving into. That, went on for a couple of years before we came to a strategic decision to actually divest the buy side of the business. So kind of the bread and butter of what the company had kind of grown up on, we divested and focused solely on streaming, video, and the sell side. We then rebranded as Telaria, and for the next couple of years kind of transitioned fully into a video first, CTV first company, really building out the best suite of features for any of our streaming publishers and content creators. And I would say probably drove a lot of the innovation in that space as more and more moved programmatic, which was very, very exciting. Then a few years go by, and that's when Telaria and Rubicon merged right at the height of the start of the pandemic, went through a couple years, merging and becoming the omnichannel solution that we are today. And of course, couldn't stop there. We then acquired SpotX. And that is how we get to what Magnite is today, which is, the leading omnichannel platform for all of our publishers and content creators. So it's a lot. It's been 14 years. It certainly has not been one company.
What do you think, obviously same, I guess, quote unquote, same employer, but obviously very different company. What do you feel like was the biggest challenge?
So I think the biggest challenge actually hit when Rubicon and Telaria merged. It was just bringing together decently sized public companies that had historically been focused on, obviously different sides of the ecosystem. Rubicon was very focused on the display side. Telaria was very focused on the CTV and video side. So clearly, strategically made a ton of sense to bring together, but culturally and just logistically, it was a ton of work. And then add the fact that COVID just kind of made the whole thing even more difficult because we were all virtual. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, no question.
Yeah, I could imagine merging two companies together during a time where everybody's remote is a little tough.
Yeah, definitely tough. But it's funny, I look back now and I say, okay, the amount of mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures that I've experienced is like a real life business school. Like you never get that experience to go through it all. So it's definitely been amazing learning experience and great for my career.
When you think about your time, obviously with Magnite, what do you feel like was your biggest milestone, your biggest success that you're really proud of? Because obviously you've worn many hats. You've moved kind of up the ranks and into a C title, which is a huge accomplishment. What do you feel is the biggest, proudest moment you've had?
I think the proudest moment was when we made the decision to kind of divest the buy side and focus on streaming and CTV. And it was early on when all of that inventory was still being monetized direct, right? And so we placed a bet that obviously it was going to move programmatic, and clearly it was right. Maybe not as fast as we all wanted to move, but I think that was like the biggest piece was like, okay, how are we going to actually get this done and transition from a very legacy buy side kind of ad network perception to a 100% sell side streaming, innovating leader.
Yeah, that's a huge pivot, and it's a huge probably a big gamble, but not really a big gamble, because everybody saw the opportunity with streaming television and being direct sold initially and moving into kind of more programmatic pipes. Like we're seeing it today. Like even we're seeing like the simplified monetization strategies for like Disney and Hulu. Like that's definitely changed, whether it's direct through SSPs or programmatic pipes or even direct through DSPs. I mean, what do you see, Magnite's position on streaming over the next 12 to, 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an industry perspective, we believe, right, that subscription only is not sustainable in the long term, and that companies obviously who have previously stayed away from that are now embracing ads, that this revenue model is going to work. It's going to work for consumers. It's going to work for the content creators, and that this will help us as the industry kind of continues to evolve and be an additive kind of user experience. So Magnite is very bullish in that AVOD model. We also think that the disruption of traditional linear TV and the fragmentation being created with all the different ways consumers can view content now is just going to continue to evolve. And ad tech and Magnite can play a big role in that, which is obviously very exciting as we look forward to the next, 3 to 5 years. And that there's so many converging trends happening right now that it's super exciting to be in a role where we can help clients make sense of all of that, work with them to figure out how to activate quickly and translate, all these opportunities into, hopefully, obviously, revenue and results, both for our sell side and the buy side. And so it's an interesting time right now. We've all been talking about linear TV moving over for years, as you said earlier, and we're still not even at that tipping point, right? But it's obviously much bigger than it was a couple years ago. And the future is only going to be more driven towards programmatic, more driven to technology enablement, more driven to ads. So it's exciting.
I think the industry in particular, as it relates to, I guess, TV consumption, in my opinion, my personal opinion, it's all going to be streaming. It's just a matter of when. There might always be this market for linear, 10, 15, 20 years from now. But eventually it'll all be streaming. It'll all be over the internet, television, ad-supported television, plus, whatever your SVOD options in the market. But I think it's obvious too, everybody tried the subscription model. Everybody found it to be challenging. And everybody converted into some sort of hybrid model of, $4.99 a month with some ads, $15.99 with no ads. So it's a continuing trend that the advertising supported models is working and is probably best for publishers.
Yeah, 100%. And, the unknown, I mean, you see it, right? With like even YouTube TV, which obviously sits in its own little walled garden for the most part, but you just can see how TV viewing of the future looks compared to the past. They're a perfect example.
Okay, so here's a random fact. So they released some sort of stat today. This is a little bit before your episode is released. And apparently, and I don't follow this guy, but my kids do. So apparently Mr. Beast's YouTube device consumption is 50% connected TV now. So even someone like him who has a massive following, obviously at a global scale, he's finding that people are watching his content on a television and not on a mobile device or a tablet. Like they're seeing that transition of, these content creators moving more into like a streaming television format than a mobile format. I think it's proving out that, YouTube in particular is doing a great job in capturing their audience on the big screen, but so are all the other broadcasters and vMVPDs out there. They're obviously accepting the change and shifting their focus more towards a streaming platform.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just think about, you look at just the new, like the generation, right? Like my kids are 3 and 5, right? And they can use the connected TV applications better than I can. And they don't really even know how to operate the linear side of things. So it is funny just to see how much is going to change as the generations kind of grow up.
Totally. And with that comes kind of like the second part. So the industry is obviously changing quite a bit. We have a lot of industry publications, lots of sources for information. how do you or the team at Magnite stay up to par with just the constant change in streaming television?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a ton of partnering with our clients, right? All the major broadcasters, all the major players in the space are key partners with ours. And so spending a lot of time with them, both from a day-to-day kind of commercial aspect, right? Just understanding their challenges, and then, but also spending a ton of time with the product and eng side to think about, okay, how do we drive forward this change in how we're going to deliver content and how buyers are going to buy this content in a way that's the most, obviously effective, efficient, and innovative. And so I think that's a huge piece of it, a huge bucket. And then, of course, there's just how do you kind of stay up on all the industry trends with all of the articles that are released every day, right? I'm sure, like many folks, as soon as I wake up, it's like you have all the emails coming in, right? And I'm just sitting there reading links my entire commute into the city every day. So I think a lot of it is a combination of understanding the industry, understanding the press, right? Understanding what reporters are talking about and reporting on. And then big bucket, though, is really understanding the nuances with our clients and the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, I think communication with partners is always key. That's my main source of really information overall. So, random part. This is kind of a new section that I've been adding in. I've been doing this with everyone. It's actually been a little bit fun because you get to pick some questions and then I ask you those questions. So one of the questions you picked is, why do you love ad tech? So I'm curious, why do you love ad tech?
I think I love to hate ad tech.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? People ask me like all the time, right? Like, why have you been here for 14 years? Like, what excites you? And my answer is always the same. It's that every day is different. Ad tech is changing like so fast that you almost can't catch up or even like try to stay ahead with where the industry is going. But at the same time, we're also paving the path of where the industry is going. So it's a very interesting time and place where so much excites me for the future, but also there's so much to do that you can't even pretend to get bored or even think about getting bored. And then on the flip side, of course, you love to hate it because at the same time, there's the same frustrating topics like inventory quality and, general ecosystem gripes that we all have that you're just like, why do I still deal with this every day?
Totally. I like to say we're all just trying to figure out ad tech together. And we just continue to evolve on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And it's not that we're winging it, but it's that there's so much change. It's so fast and there's so many outlying regulation and technologies that roll out. And we're constantly trying to be one step ahead of, technological rollouts and benefits to our clients, that it's a constant evolution and it's exhausting. I love it, but it's also exhausting. It's also all right, guys, manufacturing, they've been manufacturing the same thing for 25 years. Now they're finally upgrading their machines. For us, it's we just upgraded everything 3 months ago. And now you're telling us we need to upgrade it again?
Yeah. And there's something exciting about how many companies in ad tech didn't exist 15, 16, whatever amount of years ago, right? Where in more, as you said, automotive, obviously the major companies have been around for much longer. And so there is something exciting about the fact that it's just, sure, there's big players in the space, but there's so many smaller startups that there isn't a playbook, that you're trying to create something new and innovative, and that you can have new ideas that really do help bridge the gaps in the industry. And it's not something that's going to take 20 years to change.
Totally. I mean, if you even think about automotive industry, it takes them 6-7 years for them to roll out a new car, and all they added was chrome to the handle. And you're this is really cool. It's the same engine, the same V6 engine you had before. Took you 7 years to do this, and it's $50,000. For us, it's we're constantly getting changes that are rolling out every 6 or 12 months, and I'm God, I just can't keep up. Okay, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to network with? Who do I need to sit down and have a coffee with, so they can explain this to me, so then I can learn it better. And then I can dig down deeper if I have to. but it's incredibly fast change, which is fun. And that's why I love it, but it's also challenging.
Yes, it is certainly challenging.
So, obviously brand loyalty is really big in advertising and it's extremely important for everyone. What particular brand has your loyalty?
That's a good one. I like this question. I think that my very clear answer is Nike. I played soccer growing up, big soccer fan still. And I feel like Nike was always like that brand that went along with my growth in soccer. And so it has always stuck with me. They got me early on, and I still am a very, very clear Nike fan.
Interesting. Okay, so why Nike in particular? Is it just like the brand image that they've created, or is it the styles or designs? Or
no, I think it's probably the brand image. I think they, as I said, soccer, big part of my life, and big part of like their sponsorships with like the women's soccer team. It just always has been a brand that I thought was forward thinking and supported females. And so like that loyalty has just stuck. And now, of course, I do love their, apparel and their sneakers and all that. But I think that the loyalty that they created early on in my life has probably cemented that more so than that I actually love their sneakers.
I get it. I do too. So I totally get it. And Katie, if there was, as we're kind of leading into the last question of the podcast, if you could leave, this audience with one last thought, what would that be? And what would you like to say to everyone?
I think I'll leave it on for kind of my advice to people entering ad tech or thinking about entering ad tech. It is certainly an interesting space. There's a huge opportunity, as we've obviously discussed for the last 25, 30 minutes. A couple points that I would just make around it that I have found really helpful as I've navigated my career is find a mentor early on, someone that has faith in you, right? And pushes you. That age does not matter, especially in ad tech. And as long as you're passionate, you will be successful.
That's amazing advice. That's actually really great. Thank you, Katie. And that actually brings us to the end of the podcast. And I want to thank you and Magnite and the team for having you here. I really appreciate your support.
Thank you. This was fun. And that went fast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people, about the people that make ad tech great. Stay connected with me for more insights, trends, and interviews in the realm of ad tech. Don't miss out on our latest updates, so follow me on X, Instagram, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, ATG Slack community has insights, networking opportunities, and jobs. Keep the conversation going and stay at the forefront of ad tech innovation.